Welcome everyone to Real Talk. It's Paul from Screenwriting Scribe. Welcome to see you. I know this is a little later version of the week. I was on vacation just this past couple days back to my hometown, which was really nice to go to. So we got back a little later than I thought. So I wanted to make sure to give you guys a good show. I didn't just want to pull up and say, hey, this is what I know, though it still might seem like that. But let's get into the talk for today. Let's take a look at the box office because I was wrong. Shocking, I know. I'm happy to admit when I'm wrong. And when we talk about being wrong, let's take a look at this week in the box office. So as we look at this week in the box office, look at what number one is. Twisters. Can you believe that? $81 million. Holy cow. That's a far cry from what I was thinking it was going to be. And I think I predicted 15 to 20 million. So that was really, really a lot better than expected. So the question is, why Twisters? Why did Twisters do so good this particular week? And I think the question as to why it did so good this week is what is out this week. So if we take a look and see what is in theaters at this particular point in time, we see that Despicable Me 4 is out, Inside Out 2 is out, Longlegs is out, A Quiet Place, Day 1 is out, Fly Me to the Moon, Bad Boys Ride or Die, Maxine. So those type of things. So if you look at the reason why that Twisters probably did well in the market, it's probably because it's different than everything else in the market. And that's a hard thing to predict. You know, what we don't always know what other movies are picked to be released and stuff. Well, I mean, we do, and we don't. The other thing too is Twisters was the only thing that was really released last week. So it wasn't going up against anything. It wasn't going up against the big one this week, which is going to be Bloodpool and Wolverine, which I think is going to probably hit close to that 80 to $100 million mark that Twisters did. And I think, again, we're in the middle of summer here in the United States, so that's why you're seeing it. Twisters didn't do so good around the world. It didn't pick up with other audiences. But here in the States, it did really well because, again, I think it's a different genre. It's also probably really the only, I was going to say rom-com out there, though you can say Fly Me to the Moon is that. But I don't know. Fly Me to the Moon is more like a period piece, and I don't think it really connected well with audiences. As you can sort of see, it didn't do well in its second week. It lost 64.8% from the week before. So again, whenever you see something over 50% loss, then you know that audiences are really sort of dropping it. And you can sort of see that same thing. If we look at the rest of the top 10, Maxine was another one of those. But everything else had really good staking power. Again, look at Inside Out 2, $12 million. And it's been out 6 weeks. And total gross here in the States has been $596 million. And so, and again, Despicable Me 4 did well, the 44% loss. Longlegs surprisingly did well again. Another $11 million. Quiet Place, again, not bad. 6 point. I told you I didn't think it was going to make about $150 million here, at least domestically. Fly Me to the Moon, Bad Boys, Ride or Die, still been doing good. Will it make $190 million? It's yet to be seen, but we'll have to take a look and see. Maxine, not bad, 13 million. Again, when you think of a lot of these horror movies, they tend not to cost a lot in marketing as well as production, and so we tend not to. They don't always make a lot of money, but they don't need to make a lot of money, as opposed to some of these other movies, especially like Inside Out 2 and Despicable Me. They had a bigger budget and stuff like that, so they need to be making in the hundreds of millions of dollars to make their money back. So, yeah, Twisters. What do you guys think? I thought that was an interesting. I did not think it was going to make $81 million, but again, it sort of hit the right time, right? There's no other competition. It didn't release the week before with this, or 2 weeks before with Despicable Me. It came out against some really small competition. The other two big movies in theaters that were coming from last week were Longlegs and Fly Me to the Moon. Two really big, I would say, more specialty type movies. I mean, genre type movies. Longlegs is a horror movie. Fly Me to the Moon is a romantic comedy. Twisters is sort of that It does have some comedy in it. I should say, so it does have some comedy. It's got some romance. It's got a lot of different things, and also it's from a lot of the reviews I've seen about it, it's really just a fun movie. It's just a popcorn movie. Leave your brain at the door, and you'll be fine. And we'll take a look in a couple of moments and look at who the screenwriter was for this. Because I always think it's important to say, okay, they have this big hit movie. Who was the writer for this? What have they produced in the past? And actually, Jeffrey Anderson, who's the writer for this, hasn't had a lot of other screen credits. So let's take while I'm talking about that, let's take a look at that here in just a brief moment here. So actually, this is still considered box office. So let me just pull up the right stuff here. Okay, let's go to zip. Up. Not what I wanted. Okay, what did I do? All right, there we go. I don't know why I decided to turn my color filters off. But hey, it's a black and white screen. It's all good. Okay, present, share screen. Okay. Okay, so we take a look at who Jeffrey Anderson is. Let's see if I can skip my stuff back here real quick. I don't know why I decided to take off my colors. That's what I get for dragging around real quickly. Okay, so the interesting thing, Jeremy wrote The Alien Apocalypse and The Twisters. So he's only written 2 movies. It looks like a relatively new writer in terms of projects that he's been writing for. There's not a lot of information about him, at least on his IMDb page. So The Twisters, as you can also see as well too, that's out of 10, 3.3. So people aren't really digging. They'll go to watch the movie, but they're not really digging the movie at all. But then again, like I said, there's not a lot of other movies out right now. So that's the other thing too. I thought was really interesting too. There's not a lot of other movies out right now. You did a little better with Alien Apocalypse, 5.3. But it's sort of when I was looking at the Alien Apocalypse, and we can take a look at that right now. One of the main complaints was again that started with a dose of stupid, added a pinch of you got to be kidding me. And honestly, that's what a lot of people were saying about Twisters. It was a popcorn movie. Don't think about it too hard, and you'll be just fine. So, all right. Okay, let's see here. I'm going to take a moment here and see if I can find how to turn my color back on. Color filters. There we go. Color filters back on. All right. That's what I get for dragging a little too quickly. So taking a look at one of the deadline articles for this particular week in terms of the movies. Perfect. So Twisters, even bigger with 81 million opening Monday AM box office update. Again, the question now is whether the movie can be sequelized. What's going to happen? More tornadoes. One has to be taking this setting to a fresh locale where there aren't tornadoes, maybe New York City. So here's the bad thing about having a sequel that no one was wanting and no one expected. With it doing well, people are going to say it did make $81 million. You know, what else can we do? This is sort of like what I wonder if this is sort of like what Sharknado did. You know, people thought, oh yeah, Sharknado, you know, whatever, and that's why it spawned like 8 or 9 million sequels and stuff. So I wonder if that's what we're going to see with tornadoes. Now it's going to be Tornado 3, The Real Threat, or maybe I'm trying to remember what they call, not like necessarily a hurricane, but like a water spout, The Reckoning, that type of stuff. So it sounds like people really just enjoyed the movie. And again, we talked about a lot of the other stuff. But I think, like I said, I think that's really the reason why it did well in the marketplace was because there wasn't anything else really to get in the way of Twisters. Now, I think Now, the bet I'm going to make with you guys is for this next week, when we look at when we look at the numbers for next week, we're going to see that Twisters is going to lose probably about 60 to 70% of what they made this week. I think with Wolverine and Deadpool coming in, and especially I don't think the word of mouth on Twisters is the best. I think we're going to see a sharp decline in the box office for that. But like I said, I can't wait to see what Deadpool and Wolverine are. We're in the midst of summer here in the United States, and so I think we're going to see that again, $80 to $100 million this weekend coming up. There's been a lot of marketing around it. Marvel really needs this one to do well. If it doesn't do well, then I don't think there's going to be a lot of other Marvel movies. But I think with these two characters, which a lot of fans adore, the marketing's been pretty good with this. I think it's going to do really well. I'm hoping to go out and see it this weekend. I've been saying that the last couple of weeks of hoping to get to some movies, but I actually haven't had a chance to due to my schedule. But hopefully this week, I actually want to see a couple of the movie. I want to see Longlegs, maybe get into Sweet Twisters. I don't know. I thought the first one was fine. I like Bill Paxton and Helen Hunt. So yeah. So that's what is going to be coming up soon here is actually, again, is going to be Wolverine and Deadpool. So I'm excited to see how this is. I think, like I said, these two characters are some that I think are going to do really well. I think this particular, I think fans really love this. And I think, let's take a look and see who the writer and who the writer is for Wolverine and Deadpool is, because I think that'll be interesting as well too. All right, so let's take a look. I'm going to share my screen again so you guys can sort of see who we're working with here. Okay, so the writers are Sean Levy, Rita Rice, and Ryan Reynolds. Let's take a look and see what each of them have written before. So Sean Levy has written, survey says. All right, so that's producer. Let's take a look at as a writer. It's his first movie. So this is the first movie he's written. Okay, I don't know if that's good or bad. And then let's see. Rhett Reese is another writer. And let's see what they've written. This more seasoned writer. They have 29 credits. And so let's see. Take a look at them. The Joe Schmo Show, Balls Up, Watchdog, Clue. Well, those are the ones that are coming up. Sorry, but he's done Twisted Metal. Okay, I know a lot of people have thought that was a pretty good series. Ghosted, Spearhead, Underground, Zombieland, Double Tap. I thought that was okay. I've seen that one. Once Upon a Deadpool, Deadpool 2. So, okay, so the guy who's also helping them helmet has also written Deadpool before. But if you look at a lot of the other stuff here, I mean, it should be a pretty decent script from the perspective that he seems like he's averaging about a 7. About a 6.5, 7. So it's going to be better than average. So that's nice to see that you have a writer who's has 29 projects, which is really nice to see that they brought in somebody who wasn't just brand new and said, "Oh yeah, we're going to give you this." Let's see. I'm curious about Ryan Reynolds. What has Ryan Reynolds written before? Is this his first one? Wow, he's done 15 things. So let's take a look and see what Ryan Reynolds has written before. So he's read Deadpan, Bedtime Stories with Ryan. Okay. Welcome to Wrexham, Match Made in Hell, Becoming Pikachu, Truce, Don't Skip on the Powder, Deadpool number 2. He actually has a real higher rating than the other guy does. But then again, he also knows the character really well. So he's written a lot of stuff for Deadpool. So I think that's really good. Give me 1 second here. I think my data got sold because I'm getting phone calls all the time. You know, those are wonderful things. So like I said, I'm pretty excited for this because looking at these two writers, they have a lot of experience and stuff like that. So I think there's some good stuff to be had from Wolverine and Deadpool. So the writers have some good experience on them. They've written a lot of movies, so this should be a good movie. So we'll take a look and we'll see what the critics say and stuff like that. So, all right. Let's see. The other thing, let's start talking a little bit about, I'm going to skip ahead to screenwriting tips. So I've had some people talk to me about doing a series on going from first draft to, from idea to first draft. And so we're going to start, I'm going to start working on those particular videos. So this week, it's going to be more than just one video. It's going to be looking at this in different phases. So the first thing we're going to do is talk about how to brainstorm. And I'm going to give you 4 ways. These are not the only 4 ways. These are 4 ways that I'm trying to get you to get down and write and put your ideas on the page. And so those are the big things. So the one I'm going to share with you right now, there are going to be 4 in the video. I'll share 2. I'll share one, how to do it with AI, and one, how to do it just on your own. The first way to do it is just get a bunch of note cards and write your ideas out. 1 idea per note card. Do not self-censor, meaning don't say, well, that sounds like a bad idea. I want you to take everything that's in your head, put it on the page. Now, why do you do this? Why do we need to brainstorm like this? Why do we need to get the ideas out of our head? Because right now you have a log jam in your head, figurative log jam, because you can't think of a new idea because you want to hold on to these other ideas. You're like, man, I need to hold on to these things. I need to hold on to them and be ready to use them. And I need to, I don't want to forget this. And so what happens to a lot of writers is they just leave them in their heads. And they say, well, I'm just going to stew over them and stuff like that. The best thing to actually do is to take them out of your head, because then you can start creating. Then you're not using your brain power to just hold on to the idea. You're actually using your brain power to think of new ideas. So write them all down, put them on a note card, open up a Word document, put them in a journal, however you want to store those ideas, just so that you have them written and have access to them again. So I think that's very important. So that's one way to do that. And I think it's important to do that as well too, just again to get them out of your head. Second way that I want you to start looking at your brainstorming, or to do brainstorming, at least using AI, is Storyworks. That's one of the things that I've gotten paid to promote, but I actually really enjoy Storyworks, and I've used it several times. I've created 6 or 7 blueprints of what I want to do for stories. And so it's relatively inexpensive. It's $9.99. I don't get paid when you use it. I don't have a link. Hey, I got a link you can use. I don't. I just like the product because it goes through a series of questions and asks and helps you flesh out that story. So that's a way if you want to use AI to help you brainstorm, and it doesn't tell you the story. So again, you have to, because it asks you the questions. You're like, okay, it says, like, who's the hero? What's their motivation? And it'll help you brainstorm it, but you have to figure that out. It's not like it's giving you what your story is about. So that's why I like Storyworks, is because it walks you through a set of, I think, 18 questions, and it makes you really think about your idea in more detail and helps you flesh out the idea. And it takes a long time. It takes about an hour and a half to get through it. But that's one way if you're thinking, well, I don't know how to do this. I don't know if I'm asking the right questions. If you want something structured like that, that is one option that you can do. Again, lots of different ways to brainstorm. There's not one way to brainstorm. And so those are 2 different ways you can do that. I'll put out another video here in a little bit, hopefully tomorrow, talking about the 2 other ways to brainstorm. And again, we'll start working on getting to that first draft, often known as the vomit draft. Because what you're going to basically do is you're going to vomit out everything that you want. And through this first part, going from idea to first draft, don't self-censor yourself. Don't critique yourself. Don't go back. You'll still see in some of my first drafts right now, I don't even go back and correct spelling. Because it's not important in the first draft. The first draft is just you getting the story down and stuff like that. So that's, and I want everybody to have an exercise to do that. And so after each of those different things, I'll say, okay, so here's your exercise, create one of these and see what happens and see what kind of questions you have. And then we'll take it from there. So then next week, I'll talk about that a little bit more too, about where we're going to go from the brainstorming. So again, we're going to be going from brainstorming, from that initial creation of an idea, to a first draft. Now, the first draft is not the last draft. That's the other thing too. again, the first draft does not have to be perfect. Most of screenwriting and writing is actually rewriting. It's taking a look at what you're doing and saying, okay, what works and what doesn't work, and then fixing it. And the fixing process is hard because once you fix one thing, it sort of has a ripple effect. Well, then if I have to fix something on page 62, now something probably on page 12 needs to be fixed. Or is my character motivation work the same way because of that arc and stuff like that? But the nice thing is there's a lot of software out there that helps you sort of catch those areas that you need to work on. And we can talk about those in a little bit as well, too. I think I'm going to start doing some more just writing parts of screenplays using different parts of software, so you can take a look at, hey, this is how Story Architect works and does stuff, or hey, this is how So Create does stuff and stuff like that. Because I think, like I said, people had a lot of fun when we made a character using Script Studio. So that's one thing we might go back to. Let's see here. What else do I want to talk about? Well, let's talk about some pop culture right now. We're going to talk about everybody's favorite. The Acolyte has wrapped up, thank God. So hopefully we'll stop talking about it. Actually, just this weekend, I actually just bought, this is going to sound bad, and it sounds like I am pretty old when it comes to this. I just got to Game of Thrones. I've never watched the whole 8 seasons, so I just was at the store the next couple days ago, and it was a used video store, and they had season 1 and 2 for $20 total. So I was like, okay, I've seen bits and pieces of Game of Thrones, but I'm going to start watching through it because I think House of the Dragon has been doing a really good job where the Acolyte has been falling short. And again, that comes with how the writing is. But right now they're really talking about in the Acolyte, before we get to this particular article, but they want a season 2. I don't think the writing's strong enough to have a season 2. But that's sort of what people are. Well, we need to know what happens to Kumir, the Sith guy and stuff like that. And I'm like, no, we don't. I think you can see what happens when you have bad writing, and people don't want to hang around with that. And I think that's the reason why we can also look at the stats. But the Acolyte has some of the worst viewing on Disney Plus, and it's because it doesn't have a good story. And I think you could add a compelling story. And so the reason why I say that is because let's take a look at this other article that I have. Back to this. I'm just having all sorts of fun today with that's what I get for not using a mouse. All right. Okay, so let's take a look here at the Acolyte calls out the greatest Jedi flaw of all, and it isn't pride. So this is actually a very interesting article. This is from Screen Rant. And one of the things it talks about is they like the show, which is fine. That's their opinion. I don't have to agree with it. It says, of course, all the golden ages must end, and the Acolyte shows where the cracks were beginning to grow. And let's see. Where was it actually? Where I actually wanted? Okay. That is right. Let me read this next two paragraphs. So, of course, this is an incident we as the audience know that alludes to what ultimately happened to Anakin Skywalker. His desperate love for his wife and his grief over his mother ultimately led him to snap, and the Empire rose as a result. Yet in this episode alone, which is episode 8, we see that in this episode alone, we see that Anakin was by no means the first Jedi to be wholly ruined by his emotions. Okay, so that would be episode 8. Soul's love and protective actions towards Osha were so powerful they led to the deaths of dozens of witches and Jedi alike. And Soul and Kellenak and Torben were left to their own devices, their negative emotions festering. So the article is talking about the greatest Jedi flaw isn't pride, it's how naive they are. Or I think it talks more about what it is that they don't deal with their emotions well. And I think this would have been a very interesting series for the Acolyte if they would have delved more into the emotions. Again, it gets back to the writing, though. What are they really trying to do? And I think with more experienced writers, which for whatever reason, Disney Plus didn't want to hire some experienced writers. We know they're out there. There's lots of experienced writers out there. But I think this is where the Acolyte really falls short, is if it had better writers, I think this would be an interesting theme to explore. How the emotions are ones that really ruin the Jedi, not expressing their emotions or not dealing with their emotions. that would have been very interesting. And I think it would have been a much more compelling show if they would have actually dealt with this particular theme. But the bad thing is it's not it's outside sources that are looking at and telling us that this is what the theme is bad and this is why it's not so good. So yeah, so I think it would have been better if Headland, I think it's Leslie Headland, had come forward and said, this is what we really wanted to focus on. How are the Jedi not dealing with their emotions, and what can it lead to? And I think that would have been a very compelling story. And they had the time, they had the resources. So why didn't this work? I wonder if it's because if they really didn't really plan out the series very well. I think if you can probably make the case that they didn't plan the series out very well, and that is what happened to why people didn't like this. It was because it wasn't planned out well. It sort of sounds like each of the writers was doing it. It sounds like it, but I bet I know they had a writer's room, but hopefully the writers would have come together more and talked about things more. And I think that's where this really falls short. And it's really much a missed opportunity. And it's really caused the Star Wars fans just to sort of pull back from even wanting to know about it. Just recently, Chris Gore and Alan Ng. Alan Ng actually did an interview with. He was a wonderful guy. I had a great conversation with him. You can look at that. I'll post that in the description below. You can watch my interview with Alan Ng. But they just had a funeral for a franchise. So talking about a funeral for Star Wars and about how much of Disney Star Wars has really ruined the franchise. And I think a lot of people are on bated breath. We talked about Deathpool and Wolverine. I think the writers are in the movies in more capable hands. You have two people who wrote for Deathpool before, and they have shown that they've gotten good results with it. You're seeing that most of the scripts that they have are between 6.5 and 7, which means it's going to be better than average. It's going to be almost to that good range. Will it win a bunch of awards and stuff? Probably not. Will it be a compelling and fun movie? I'm betting yes, and I bet it's going to probably be a lot better than what people are going to say about the story in Twisters and stuff like that. But that's sort of where we're at in pulp culture. Is we either are, and so let's talk about that for a second too. Is why do we think that movies are where they're at today? And a lot of it is they're allowing new writers to come in and write, but are these new writers getting their teeth sort of sharpened on projects that will help create help them to write better episodes, that they get the ability to start getting the reps in. Like I said, I've been training more, I've been lifting more and stuff like that. And you have to get your reps in to get better weights, to get better stories. You need to keep writing stories. You can't just not write stories and expect your next story to be great. I mean, you have to have not so good stories to get to where you need to go. And that's why a lot of writers write TV shows, because it's not as expensive to, you have a budget of, if it's a really popular show, maybe $1 million per episode, but there's not as much pressure. $1 million budget for an episode is a lot different than $180 million budget for a show like The Acolyte. That's a lot more higher stakes. I'd be curious to see how much the writers were actually paid for The Acolyte. How much was the writing team actually getting per episode? And I think that could explain a lot too, because if they're only paying, guilds minimums, why is the story as bad as it is? Because they didn't hire anybody that's good to write. And I think that's, I'm hoping audiences are seeing this, that instead of just looking for the director, look who the writer is. Because if the writer's a good writer, and not to say that the director is not important, or the actors, or those are important too, but they can only do so much if the writing's poor. If the writing's poor, you can't make it that next level movie. So just something to think about. All right. Some of the other stuff I want to talk about pop culture wise was, I don't know if you guys knew this, but I'm an old fart. Well, I think you all know that I'm old. But the next thing to talk about is sort of The Young Frankenstein turned Mary Shelley's literal classic into comedy gold. I didn't know this, but it's been 50 years since Young Frankenstein came out. The interesting, and this particular article comes from us from the Independent. Again, I will link that in the show notes. But I think it's interesting because the other thing is, I don't think we've had some real good comedies lately, either. There's a section here I want to talk to you about here in just a moment. But I think, have we had any really good comedies? I mean, we haven't seen any real good. I mean, Thelma was the best comedy of the summer so far. Or, I mean, you could probably say Inside Out or Despicable Me. Those are, in some sense, comedies because of they're children's movies and they're funny and that type of stuff. But so let's just take a look here real quick at Young Frankenstein and just look at, because I think this is interesting from a screenwriting perspective. So Gene Wilder and Mel Brooks, the two men worked doggedly on the screenplay, bonding over cups of tea and digestive biscuits. The trick they quickly decided was to approach the project in deadly earnest. In the completed movie, Frankenstein and his monster are shown dancing in top hats and tails to urban Berlin music. The script is full of odd vaudeville gags bound to make audiences groan. It has crass jokes about big knockers that might have embarrassed Benny Hill or Russ Meyer. Absurdity reigns. Nonetheless, Young Frankenstein has the bones of a proper horror film, too, literally, in fact. The filmmaker sourced real skulls to add some extra spice to the early scenes. Brooks and Wilder took their research very seriously. They studied Shelley's novel intently and watched it and rewatched while Frankenstein and Bride of Frankenstein, both determined to remain as faithful as possible to the look and tempo of those movies. We saw how we took their time. Whale wanted everything to be dark and somber, Brooks later observed. So I think this is a good thing to sort of talk about in terms of how do you take a novel and sort of make it your own. And so Young Frankenstein is based on Frankenstein, but yet they turn it into something that is a comedy. If you've never seen Young Frankenstein before, it's a very funny movie. A lot better than some of the comedies nowadays. But again, I could just be showing my age with that. But I think it sort of puts on a masterclass that you have to know the material well in order to do justice to the movie, which is where a lot of the stuff like the Acolyte, like a lot of these prequels and sequels that we're seeing that the writers don't know the movie so well, we see them where they fall. And you can see that because Young Frankenstein was a very successful movie, the reason why it was successful is because they understood where the author was coming from. They had their own vision, and having their own vision is fine. So Rings of Power, people, you should really read this article because I think it would really, I'm talking to the showrunners, not the watchers, but the writers and the showrunner of this. You should really watch this because it allows you to see what you need to do to have a good show. That you really need to understand the material. And you can take it in your own direction, but you need to understand the material and be faithful to what they were trying to show. Again, you can have, a funny comedy, based on a dark book because Frankenstein was a dark book. But you can see Mel Brooks and Gene Wilder, they took that and used their own direction, but they still were faithful to the source material. You got to understand the source material. So, all right. All right, so next, screenwriting software updates. So I talked to Justin over at SoCreate. I'm going to get the updates for SoCreate out. I'm going to create a short video for that, talking about themes. Again, if you're like a real visual storyteller, I really like SoCreate. I got a link for it in my thing below if you want to use it and stuff like that. I do like SoCreate because like I said, you can put pictures in. It's a little different way of writing in that maybe I should just do a how-to video on how to use SoCreate. I think maybe that would be a nice video too, just to show you how to, because it's very visual about how you do stuff. You can add an action scene, you can add a dialogue scene, you can add pictures in there. Like I said, the picture of the scene that I'm writing about right now. So this sort of ties into the last thing about Young Frankenstein. I'm actually creating a screenplay based on another short story in Weird Tales, talking about a veteran of I want to say it's the First World War, but he goes to a forest in France after the war and stuff like that, and some really weird things happen. And so I'm sort of building on that story and talking about it in a little different way. But it's really neat because there's an opening scene where he's a paratrooper and he kills a squad of Germans, and you can sort of I have different faces. So you can see the different faces of people talking. I could create, I have the forest as sort of the setting is in the forest. And so the background of of my writing is a forest scene. So it's like I'm right there in the midst of typing it. I can visualize the scene. I can visualize the characters. It's really pretty neat. So I'll get that up there. Pre-Write wants me to talk about them. I'm hopefully going to do a video about them this week as well too. Again, I'm interested to give it a try, so we'll give it a try. Haven't heard much yet back from Storyworks, which I'm really interested because they're still working on that free screenwriting editor, and I know they're going to add a lot of good stuff. I've been giving some input as to what they want to make this the best free screenwriting editor ever. It's to take on the likes of Kitsenarist and Fade In. So I think I'm excited for that. I'm excited for that for you guys because I know a lot of people want some free programs and some nice editors, and I think the market's ripe for that. So I think those are all my updates for the week in terms of screenwriting software. Now for channel updates. So I had an interesting question this week. Someone asked me if I work for Fade In. I do not work for Fade In. I like the program. I've used the program before. And that's the reason why, actually, is one of the reasons why the channel got started was because no one was really talking about screenwriting software. And so that's the majority of this channel. We talk about screenwriting software. We try to give you ways to work and to get stuff to help you out. I mean, that's the big thing. We're just trying to help you out. And so that's why I do the stuff I do. So I've only gotten paid for one video, and that was for Storyworks, and I've put that in the description and stuff like that. I'll have another paid video from them in a little while. And again, I will write that in there. But everything else, I might have some affiliate links. I might not. A lot of stuff, most of the software out there, believe it or not, does not have affiliate links. Like Script Studio, no affiliate link. Pre-Write right now, no affiliate link. He says they might have one, but probably not. Final Draft, no affiliate link. I do have one for Arc Studio Pro. But for the most part, a lot of these softwares don't have affiliate links. So I don't make a ton of money off of doing this particular channel. You know, I'm not making tens of millions of dollars. I mean, I know some of the people that put together these softwares, so I talk to them from time to time, but I don't really get anything from them. I might get a free software to use for a little while and stuff like that. So that, I know that does have some value. And I've talked to some people too. I haven't done any consulting, but for the most part, I think this is the best year for me doing YouTube in terms of money I've made off videos. And also, I want to say thank you to the person who gave me $15 on Buy Me a Slice of Pizza or Buy Me a Coffee. Thank you very much for that $15. That was really sweet. I don't, like I said, it's been really cool. And the funny part is, since you gave me that gift, I've been actually able to take that gift off of Buy Me a Coffee, because up until that point, they for whatever reason didn't like my channel or something like that. They wouldn't, because I've had other donations there before, but they wouldn't let me take it off. So your donation, I got to take the rest of the money off, which was not a lot, but thank you. I appreciate it. I mean, the whole overall, the amount that you gave me was great. I really appreciate that. I appreciate anything that anybody ever does, any nice words, any nice comments. That is awesome. But I mean, the total amount that I had on Buy Me a Coffee was not hundreds of dollars and stuff like that. It was less than $100 total. And I was able to get that off, which was nice. That'll help pay for my gym membership for a month. So that is nice. And also helps me. Actually, I'm going to use that money to help get the course going. So as you know, I've been working on a course, Final Draft Made Easy. And I'm still working on that course. I'm hopefully going to have that course out October, the full course. And so in September, I'm going to start advertising it. And if you'd like to get on board, if you want to be an early tester, let me know. coachingforthescreen@gmail.com. You can just also look it up at the business contacts emails if you want to be a part of it. I'm going to charge, at the end of the day, it's going to probably be $150. But for people who want to start it, I'm going to start it real cheap. maybe like $25 for the first time for the first couple of people that come in and are willing to give me a testimonial of whether they like it or not, or what I can do to fix it. So that'll start in September. And so you'll be able to do that maybe even earlier, depending on how fast I get the rest of it done. I'm trying to think what other things. Keep giving me ideas for videos. I thought it was really funny. Someone wanted to know how to do point of view for binoculars and scope. And I'm like, okay, well, I'll find a movie and then I'll put it out there. It's like a less than a 1 minute video. And the thing's got over 600 views. I was thinking, okay, maybe 13, 14 people are going to want to watch this, but I've never 600 people. I was like, holy cow. I didn't know that was such a big deal. Well, maybe it was because of what happened, a couple of weeks back with one of the former presidents here in the United States, and people were curious as maybe making their own screenplays or writing something like that. I don't know. But I thought that was interesting. Yeah, you never know what kind of videos. The suggestions that you guys give me are always golden. I always appreciate them. And they always lead to some great videos. So, well, we'll be on next week on Monday again. So I will see you then for more box office stuff. So what do you guys think? How many millions do you think Wolverine and Deadpool are going to get? Are we going to see that $100 million this week? Even more, maybe $120 million. How far do you think Twisters is going to fall? Is it going to be a 60% retracing? I think it's going to be even more than that. I'm going 70 to 80%. See if I'm right or wrong next week. Until the next video, as you know it, you guys keep writing. That's the hard part. Keep writing. It's real easy to say, well, I'm going to write. The hard part is actually putting pen to paper or fingers at keyboards. But you can do it. I know you can, because I want to watch your dream turn into a wonderful film, because we need it, and we need it badly. Well, until the next stream, live well and write well. Have a great day, guys. Wonderful to see you all again.